Oh man, 15 minutes to the train. I have no idea where my passport is. So I'm supposed to keep it in my secret passport pocket or keep it in with my dirty underwear inside my socks. Bet Rick Steves doesn't have to deal with this shit. Hi, I'm Spud Hilton with Bad Latitude. While I'd never recommend that you let somebody else do your travel for you, it's always a good idea to learn from other people's travels, especially the mistakes. That's where I come in. I've made enough blunders over the years to come up with a set of tips that hopefully makes it easier for you on the road. Now, it's not enough for you to be better at traveling. You should also be trying to be a better traveler, and hopefully the tips on this video will help you to do both. It's important to understand, if you're going to Europe, the difference between a converter and an adapter. Europe tends to run on 220 volts, whereas almost all American gear runs on 110. Well, typically a converter would be used to make it so that your gear can run on their current. Here's the thing. All you really need in almost all cases is an adapter, which is a piece of plastic and copper that makes your plug fit their plug. Why? Because almost all modern chargers for your gear have in tiny fine print runs from 110 to 240. Check the fine print, make sure it says that, and in nearly all cases you should be just fine. Just because a manufacturer says that a bag is within carry-on specifications, that doesn't mean it's actually going to fit. Typically, people are allowed 45 linear inches. Usually that's about 22 by 14 by 9 deep. Now, the manufacturer can cut it to those specifications and make it, but that doesn't take into account you trying to overstuff it with everything you own. Once you do that, all bets are off. Take this bag, for instance. This is actually 2 specifications, but I've overstuffed it so that the 9 inches deep is clearly about 13 to 14 inches and is not going to fit into those racks they have. This is only important because they've started to enforce the rule at the gate. And in general, it might seem like a good idea to gate check your bag to avoid baggage fee, but here's the problem. Gate checked bags are way more likely to have things missing because they're more likely to have things of value in them. If you've got a soft-sided carry-on bag, don't overstuff it. If you have to overstuff it, check it. Today's tip is about tipping. Hot button issue for a lot of people, I know, but when I get back to a hotel and I see that my room looks great, I know that somebody had to make it that way and it's not an easy job. I tend to leave minimum $1 to $2 per day at a standard hotel. If it's an upscale joint, maybe $3 to $5. It's important probably to label it. Just take a piece of hotel stationery, write housekeeping on the side, fold it in half and leave your money there in an obvious spot so they know it's absolutely for them. Now, probably most important is that you tip daily. Some hotels have a system to make sure everybody gets the tip that they're supposed to get, but in case they don't, and you want to make sure it gets to the person that did your room, then you need to tip daily. There's almost no point in tipping if it's not going to the person that deserves it. You're visiting a great city and you don't know where to start. Sometimes the best way is to give yourself a quest. Find the best gelato in Rome, get dance lessons in Buenos Aires, find a great hat in Panama, maybe the best haggis you can find in Edinburgh. Now, the great thing about a quest is that it takes you off of the usual tourist track, away from just focusing on the usual attractions and destinations that everybody sees. But also, more importantly, it forces you to talk to locals, it forces you to look through neighborhoods and explore places that you wouldn't ordinarily go. Now, the best thing about it possibly is that A great quest usually makes a great story. Even if you're not successful, it almost always makes a great story. Great quest, great story is almost always great travel. Anytime you're going to a foreign country, it's a good idea to know at least some of the language. It helps open doors that might not be open otherwise, as well as makes things easier. Yes, there are apps that you can get to translate or that you can look up the words, but do you really want to make people stand around and wait for you to do that? There are 7 basic phrases that you should know off the top of your head, and they should be practiced and ready to go. Hello and goodbye, please and thank you, yes and no, excuse me the apology, as well as excuse me the request. I don't speak whatever the language is. Do you speak English? How much, as well as a basic understanding of numbers, and what direction is. I like what direction is better than where is, because where is going to get you an answer you don't understand. What direction will get them at least to point. You should also know some essential nouns such as washroom, train, airport, and at the very least you can say, please, washroom. Little inflection will be a question. These won't get you through a conversation by any means, but should help make things easier. More than ever, we're keeping things on our smartphone that you actually want to have back in case you ever actually lose your smartphone while abroad. But you also want to keep it locked with the little security code so that people can't just rifle around in there if they find it on the street. There's a simple solution to that. First, write everything that you need them to know on here. If found, please call. Give the number of a different phone clearly. Say that it's in the United States, give an address, and say you'll pay for shipping. Take a picture of that. Take the picture, making sure that there's space on top and on bottom for the slider, which would obscure any text, and then make that the lock screen on your iPhone. I believe this also works for Android, but I'm not exactly sure. Make it the lock screen on your iPhone, and now they have a way to get a hold of you, tell you that they have your phone, and maybe ship it back. You know, if you're on the road long enough and there aren't laundry facilities, at some point you're going to have to wash your clothes in the sink. The big hassle is not washing them in the sink. The big hassle is getting them to dry. One way to do that a little bit quicker is lay a towel out after you've done washing, wring out the clothes good, put your piece of clothing down there, and just do the roll method. Roll that up fairly tightly. If it's on the floor, feel free to put your knees on it to squeeze out whatever extra water there is. Then when you got that rolled up, give that a couple added twists. This obviously, you don't want to do that if it's delicate clothing, but give it a couple of twists, let that sit, and let that back out again. That's going to be a lot drier than when you started, and it'll be easier to dry out when you put it up in the closet. You don't want to do this if, in fact, you haven't washed the clothing before or you have very dark clothes, because frankly, you're going to end up with a towel that's just full of stains, and not every hotel's real happy about that. Just because you know something doesn't mean you're always going to remember it. There are all sorts of packing lists out there. There's apps and lists you can get online, and there's travel books that have lists. But if there's 3 things that are really, really important to you that are specific to going overseas, what you can do is put those on a sticky memo and put those with your passport. The one thing you absolutely have to take when you go overseas. For me, that list is call the bank, let them know you're going to be overseas. Call the credit card company, let them know you're going to be overseas. And in my case, copy the passport. Now, it might be a different thing for you than it is for me, but whatever that list is that's specific to international travel, put it on a sticky note, put it on your passport, and you know you're not going to forget those things. If you're going to be in some country where you don't know the language that well, and it's a good chance that they don't know much in the way of English, there's an easy way to make sure that you can get back to your hotel or hostel at the end of the night. On your way out the door, tear off a piece of hotel stationery, or stop at the front desk and get a book of matches or a brochure from the hotel. That way, at the end of the day, you've got something to show the cab driver or bus driver so they know where you're going without having to be able to communicate it. This also works for other attractions in the place that you're going. Stop by a tourism office or another hotel, pick up all the brochures for the places you want to see. That way you have them so that you can show them to cab driver, bus driver, or just even somebody on the street, and they can point you in the right direction. Now, it's probably important to also know the phrase for how much in that language, as well as a basic understanding of numbers so that you know what it's going to cost you when you get there. There's an exercise you can do on the road that makes travel better and doesn't require sweating or stretching. From the moment you leave home until you get to your destination, look for one opportunity to help somebody else or do something nice for somebody else. Maybe it's hold open a door, maybe it's share your sandwich with a seatmate, maybe it's help somebody with their bags either into the overhead bin or off the carousel. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you'll probably feel good doing it, but more importantly, just by looking for that one opportunity to help somebody else, you're paying more attention to other people than you are to yourself, which is a worthy goal these days in travel. Now, even if you don't find anybody to help, just the fact that you were looking says something about you as a traveler and you as a person. If you can't be bothered to even look for one opportunity to help somebody other than yourself, well, that says something about you too. I'm Spud Hilton for Bad Latitude.